Hello. Today, we will test your hearing. Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today, my thing's off in a weird spot. Today, we're going to be talking about tuplets, borrowed time, and triplets. So, let's really quick talk about this. Now, MuseScore has made this really difficult to do. They made triplets easy peasy, but tuplets are not. I guess they just assumed people would never want to use tuplets. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why it's so hard to work, but I'm going to show you how to do it because I saw 0 tutorials on how to do this. Also, let's quickly talk about this. So we know what simple meter is and we know what compound meter is. Now we want to say work in simple meter, and then for one beat, we want to go into compound meter. So from simple to compound, and then that's it. That's all we want is that one beat. And it would be, we got to work on saying and less. It would be unwise to make an entire measure for that. That would just be unnecessary stuff. Like, why have another measure? That's just dumb. So what we will do instead is we will use triplets. We'll use what's called borrowed time. So borrowed time is whenever you take something that's usually like you're working in simple meter, and then you make one part of it compound meter. There's ways to do this. So for example, here, our normal subdivision would be, and we're working in 4/4. So quarter note gets the beat, la, la, la. We get 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But here, I've broken up beat 4 into 3 separate parts. This is called a triplet. Whenever you do this, they have other things like 6 tuplets, and that's, or sixlets, 6 tuplets. It's when you take a beat and split it up into 6 parts. And what we've essentially done is we've said, hey, I want this to be in compound meter. So whenever we want to do this, now there are different ways, and there's all sorts of like conscious realizations we should make when we're working with this. Because what kind of rhythm is this? Well, this is the way I was taught to count triplets. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and triplet. So I just say triplet. Some people will say la li. This is the way I was taught in school. It was 4 la li. That way you could say the beat number and then you could say la li after it. So it could be like 1 la li, 2 la li, 3 la li. It's the same thing as like triplet. So our rhythm would be 1, 2, 3 triplet, or 1, 2, 3 4 la li 1. So we would go like that. And so if we play it, that's what you get. Now, if you want to make a triplet, well, let's make a few more realizations. So we have 3 eighth notes in the space of 1. We have 3 eighth notes in the space of 1 quarter note. So so we're breaking it down. So these look like eighth notes, but they are actually smaller than eighth notes in a corresponding measure. These are, I would say, they're 16th notes off the top of my head. So I don't know if that's 100% true, and I'm not going to think about it that hard right now because every time I try to think authentically, it ends up taking longer than I wish it did, and I end up cutting it out. Anyways, so this is the most common one, is the eighth notes. The other very common one is if we were to do this with quarter notes. So we take 3 quarter notes and stick it in the space of 1 half note. So if we were to do a half note rest, so this is the most effective way I've found to do triplets. So first you enter note entry mode, select half note and enter your rest area. Go down and put a half note down, okay? So we got our half note. Now we want to make this a triplet, and they already have a preset for this. So you hit control and you hit 3, and it splits it up into 3 parts for us. If we wanted it to be like 4, we'd do that. But it's important that it starts as a half note. If you do it as like an eighth note or an eighth note or a quarter rest or whatever, it's going to split that up into 3 parts. So we don't want that. So it's something you have to know about doing this, which is something that in like other music notation softwares is not the way it's done. I feel like it's very not a great way of doing this. But you can now put down 3 quarter notes, and we'll get another very common rhythm you're probably familiar with. So this will be dun 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 dun. I don't know how I would count this. 1 la li 3 4 1 la. I don't know. That's the one I've been taught for this. There's not really like a way to count triplets very conventionally. And when you get into like, if you had 6 here, the way I've seen it done is 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2. Like that's literally the way people count it. Like there's just not a real system for this. So if we were to play this measure, so you've probably heard that rhythm all the time before. So you want to do this to spice it up because working in a simple meter is very boring. It's not boring if you have an interesting piece of music, but it'll spice up your rhythm. It'll make it more interesting. It's if you have like eighth notes the whole time, it's like dun 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 dun, not so cool. But if you had dun 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 dun, like keeps them on their toes. They're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So that's a triplet quarter. So we're sticking 3/4 of the space of one half note, or in 2 beats. So we split up a half beat into 3 separate pieces. So this is compound because by nature compound works like this. So this is like 6/8. We have 1 2 3 4 5 6. Well, now we have 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. Well, this would be 1 2 3 1 2. Or 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. This would be beats 3 and 4. So it gets sort of jumbled because now there is no beat that's like beat 2 here. Beat 2 is 1, and then this hits, and then beat 2 is somewhere in between these notes, and then this last note hits, and then beat 3 hits. So it's this weird thing. You gotta like feel it out. There's a famous piece by Chopin, Prelude in, is it Prelude? No, something C sharp. It's a if that didn't even sound like it, but it's a really famous piece where he has eighth notes running against tuplets. Is it eighth notes? He's got one hand doing eighth notes, and then the other one goes like just flying up the keys in triplets though. So it's really weird because one hand is moving, and there's no point where this hand lines up with this hand. And every piano player ever wants to learn this piece if you intend to really learn piano, because it sounds so cool, but that you're immediately confronted with this ridiculous rhythm thing. You're like, what the heck is this? And you line up the notes that do line up, and then everything in the middle, you just kind of practice it until your technique is so good that you don't have to think about it anymore, and then you can then feel it, and you can now put it in the correct perspective. But it's a really interesting piece to try and learn because of that. So, okay, so this is how we go from simple meter to compound meter. Now we need to go from compound to simple, which is what I have here. So here is normally counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we may want to do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want 2 in the space of 3 instead. So we're going backwards. And this is a rhythm that is not easy to make in this. It's easy to make once you know how, but it was not intuitive at all. So let me play it. Yep. So that's that. Now this is very, very useful. Like you're going to find yourselves reaching for these tools. So this is just how you go from a so you're working in a compound meter, you're borrowing into simple meter. So this is our beat's been broken down into 2 sections, and that's it. We get rid of that third one. And so again, we have that weird sort of a beat disappeared, and we gave fractions of it to other beats, namely beats 4 and 5. So but they're still all there. Like we didn't get rid of any time. Time is still all there. We just made these ones slightly longer. So it's one of those cool things that we can do with tuplets. So we have 1, 2, 3. It's not a triplet. Triplets, you'll also notice that we'll always put the number that we are splitting our beat up into. And so here we've got 3 in the space of 2, and it's represented by the fact that these are quarter notes. So one order of magnitude up is a half note. So we know quarter notes are going into half notes. Things can get really weird because you can do things like this too, which does not help at all. And these are rhythms that are much more specific. So it's like you can do stuff like that, and this would then sound like this. So instead of being da na 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 na, it's like da na 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 na. Da, na, 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 na. It's like this weird thing. People use these things to get really gradual speed up or slow downs. So just so you're aware, things do get complicated. You could put like a rest in there. So it'd be da na 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 na. It's just all this junk starts happening. Like it gets crazy. This is very common, the quarter note one without this eighth note thing here. And this is very common. So over here, the duplets are very, very common as well, which is why we're talking about them. But if you go over here to notes, go to tuplets, you'll see that we have quadruplets, quintuplets, we go up to non-uplets, and all these things. We could go up to 9 notes in the space of one beat. So this is really interesting, but we have even more options. So here we have that. So we're borrowing into simple meter the last 2 beats. What if we want to make this one? Well, okay, so we put down 3 eighth notes. I want to show you because if you try and do this and look it up, there's like no place that like specifically says how to do it, which is irked me. So, okay, now this last one, we're just going to delete that last note. Okay, so we're going to combine these 2. This has to be done. We're going to combine these 2 into a dotted quarter rest. So we're essentially just getting rid of this eighth note rest right here. So make sure you're on the quarter note, dot, and rest. So you put down, bang. So it's the same amount. So the program is cool with us doing this. It's one of those times we have to work around the program. Now there's no tuplet setting that's going to let us break 3 down to 2. So you have to go to, there's no preset. So you have to go to notes, tuplets, other. Now here we could say relationship. So we have 3 notes and we want it to go into 2 notes. And so that's what we did. And you hit OK. With your rest selected, it'll be blue. Hit OK. And you get that. So this might look like a mess, but it's actually easier. So we see it's been broken down. Oh, wait, that's backwards. My bad. Tuplets, other. We want 2 notes in the space of 3. So, okay, we click that. Now it's been broken down, right? And it looks kind of funny right now, but it's an quarter note rest, which is what we would expect, because as we break it down into eighth notes, we're going to get 2 eighth notes. So that would make sense. So now we put down our 2 eighth notes. And bang, you get your rhythm. This is incredibly complicated to do, in my opinion. I was shocked at how difficult tuplets were to do. Like, they're just difficult to do. But once you have it written down once, you can just copy and paste your measure. Let me exit, no input mode. So you can just be like Control-C, Control-V. Oh, tuplets cannot copy across bar lines? What the junk? Never mind. I did not. You can't do that. Oh, this is terrible. Well, geez, I hope you don't work in tuplets in here. So, yeah, I'm saving up for Finale or Sibelius or something, because probably Sibelius, because it interfaces more easily with Pro Tools. And it's industry-wise, it's an easier way to work with other people. But the workflows are super different. I've worked in both, and I got really good at Finale, and I found Sibelius to be a challenge just because I wasn't used to it. But anyways, backing up here. And there's other ways to enter no input values that I did not cover. So that's a tuplet. That's a triplet. 3 in the space of 1, 2 in the space of 3, You're basically just substituting those so you can get different times. This is called borrowed time. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.
Gods were happy with me.
What about your other one?
I hit my hand and started bleeding, so the gods were happy with that too.